Oh
Hello,
yeah,
everyone.
perfect timing. You get a nice drill.
Yes,
Start the show, baby.
it's a vuvuzela. Yeah. So welcome to our show that we do occasionally. I think it's like soccer or something. Um, Remember when we used to do like fun things when Canada was good at soccer?
That's very dramatic, but yes, I remember when we did fun things when Canada was good at soccer. I'm gonna get real close to the microphone to start the show off. Canada is still good at soccer. We're just not as good as some other countries. Okay, now get close to your microphone and
Are
say
you
this.
like quietly telling me to get close to my?
No,
Yes,
I'm
that's
no,
what I
I'm saying
thought.
me. I'm getting for my dramatic moment off camera, right and close to my microphone. My mouth is touching it. Canada is still good at soccer. We're just not as good as some countries. And you know
Yeah.
what? That goes the same for a lot of teams. All right, I'm
Yeah.
back in camera.
Um. So this Nations League window, um, it wasn't great. So we got 2-0 win over Panama, which I contend was not great. It's pretty flat performance. And then if you think about it, like we were neutral goal differential this window, so it was pretty okay. But a 2-0 defeat to the U.S., which was also flat, but we got exposed for it this time. Um, yeah, you
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said
we got
you
more to
said
that.
you
You got more to that to add to that.
Wait, did you say you said before like you tuned out after the US scored
Oh
one
yes.
goal?
So I something I think I may have mentioned before in this show. I know for sure I've mentioned it in real life, IRL as they call it online. Sometimes I just gotta turn off a game when I feel like it's just gonna make me upset, and that is exactly what. As soon as I was sort of feeling it a bit, I could tell there's. I think right before Kyle Larin had a pretty decent, even though his shot was garbage. Good little build up, nice little play. I'm like, okay, I don't think we're out of this, but something just feels off. We're really not defending already very well. I'm feeling the pressure. There's been a couple of set pieces. We're losing guys. And sure enough, corner kick, completely just lose. Who I gotta get who scored it. Apologies, but completely lost
Chris
him,
Richards.
and he completely lost that player in our box, and he puts it in. And I was like, this is not a good sign. This reminds me of the game, the Gold Cup game, a couple of years ago against them, where again we didn't get like outclassed entirely, but it was like, oh, one goal feels like enough for this game, and so I just shut it off. Continue still to follow it along live on my phone, but I was like, I got other things to do. I'm gonna walk around and check the score. But and based on the comments, based on the play, I'm like, yeah, good thing I did because Canada turned it on a bit, but they turned it on when it was 2-0. And generally, when a team sits back, it's kind of like when Uruguay got up two, and everyone was just like, "Oh, Canada really turned it on against Uruguay." It's like, yeah, you're right, but also Uruguay knew they were gonna win. So
I was just gonna say like Kyle Aaron has a real talent for like getting like an uncharacteristically like breakaway-ish chance in the first 15 minutes and then just giving it like right to the goalie.
it reminds me of like when
Like
you're warming up in hockey and you're not really warming up yourself. You're trying to warm up the goalie. So everything you're trying to hit the goalie to get him to feel the shot. I feel like that's what he's doing. He's trying to test the goalie to like, yeah, this is my practice shot. I'm gonna get you to good feel, and then we're gonna true to the real thing next. And as
yeah.
much as we always clown on Kyle Larin, we'll open a tab with Kyle Larin right here. We always clown him a bit because yeah, he does silly things like that. Where and even in the World Cup when he had a pretty good chance and just sort of like oop, just sort of goes a little wide. And then he scores the most goals ever in a qualifying campaign. So like he shows up, but then also he doesn't. So he's a lot of duality of Kyle Larin. I'm sure Orlando fans can attribute that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So before like I just get off into like random tangents.
Yes.
Okay, that's our show. But before we do too much, I want to do like the cool thing where like I say like what our lineup was, and then I get into like the discourse versus the truth, which is what I know. I know the truth.
Yes. Go on.
Um, okay, so our lineup against the U.S. in goal was Milan Borjan, and then defense on the left from left to right, Kamal Miller, Scott Kennedy, Alistair Johnston. In the middle, we had Alfonso Davies, Jonathan Osorio, Stefan Eustáquio, Ismail Kone, Richie Larea, and then up front, Jonathan David and Kyle Larrett. Okay, so basically, like the main problem with everyone's takeaway from the, I remember what you said like about our fan base after the World Cup was that like we're just as bad, and I don't think I quite accepted that then. I think I do now. Um, like after
Everyone
we,
always comes around to my way of thinking, whether you like it or not.
yeah,
Everyone always comes around.
like I was on I'm on like the CPL Discord. I was on that during the game, and like the blame always has to rest on like one person or like one group. So like you've got your like Let's Impale John Herdman crew in one corner, and then you've got like it's literally all the CSA's fault in another quarter, and then you've got let's blame like uh my 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 dear my Scott Kennedy for literally everything that went
Well,
wrong, for
let's
not being able to keep up with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
um
To be fair, Scott Kennedy. I'm a big Scott
it
Kennedy
was a
fan
bad
too.
game.
He had a bad game.
No, he didn't. He had a bad
But
game.
we don't need to go on more than saying he had a bad game because no one else had a good game. So that's fine. If we don't need to put it all on him, but we can just admit he had a bad game.
So there's like a growing consensus that like John Herdman gets out coached in big games, and the sample size for that is like I guess the World Cup, uh, and then like the Mexico and the U.S. games from qualifiers, and then I guess whatever games we lose, those end up being called big games. So what do you have like an opinion on that?
Oh boy, do I. You know what? As time has gone on, I've become less of a John Herdman fan, but I'm still I'm not as big as a stan as I used to be. I'm still on his side. I'm still in his corner. And it's like, okay, he got outclassed in big games. Okay, great. He got beat by Croatia and he got outclassed, I guess, by Morocco because they even though we put up a real good, I will say that was probably our outside the Belgium game, that was our best game, and you could probably take parallels from both that you could argue for either case. But I think the team let him down. You can't the manager, he puts forward the tactics, he puts forward the plan, he's on the sidelines, but ultimately he's on the sidelines and he's calling for what he can do, but the players have to deliver too. And we got to not don't blame individuals, blame the team, And again, like maybe it's easy to blame Borjan for the two blunders against Morocco, those two like opening goals against us, but the whole team shut down defensively. We lost to Uruguay in that friendly where we were outclassed as well, but like other teams lose to these world class teams as well. And like Canadian fans don't want to admit it because they see an African country and they go, "Oh yeah, we're gonna win that game." No, Morocco's a great. They showed in that run even before they went on that great run in the World Cup. They're a great team. They're winning left, right. It's crazy. Could he be better, Herdman? Yes. Could he deliver? Could he? Should there be a step up now next for him to achieve? Yes, absolutely. I think we should definitely expect more from him. But I don't know. Yeah, as soon as we lose a game of any importance, it's all Herdman's fault. When really it's just like the team didn't deliver. We're not ready. And you know what? I put out a comment the other day, seemed to get some positive traction, saying, last Nations League we went out in flames. We went down to Florida, and same thing happened. We got scored on in the first 10 minutes, and we got scored on again, and we got scored on again, and we got scored on. And when we put up a little bit of fight near the end to make it 3-1, and then turn to 4-1. Absolutely atrocious performance from the team. The last time we did Nations League, we only won in Cuba 1-0. This time around, Nations League, we lost a game we probably shouldn't have lost, but we lost in Honduras. So we had to battle back against and make sure to win that game against Honduras at home. We had to beat Panama and we had to play in the final. This is our first final in decades, and yeah, it stunk. We played terribly, but we got to lose some finals to win something, And I think maybe I'm hitting a lot of points before you get into them, so I apologize if I'm sort of jumping around. But this ties into this whole Herdman and the CSA are bad, and we're bad at soccer because we lost the final. It's yeah, whatever.
I think it's not that you can't even be mad. We're sports fans, of course we're mad, but spread out your anger is what I'm saying. I think if you look tactically, if you look at if you try to be a bit reasonable and look at what we were trying to do in this game, the idea that John Herdman's just an incompetent idiot, it's ridiculous. Going into this game, this is basically the lineup that I wanted. I didn't expect Kennedy to start. He's never really started a massive game like this, but people saying this was an untested backline. This is ridiculous. Are you saying we should have started like we should have started Steven Vittoria against Balogun? Like, do you think he would have kept up with him better? I that's one of the claims I've heard. I think it's just pretty dumb.
It's
Um,
it's 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 always looking for different excuses, and that's fine. But I bet you if we started Vittoria and we had the same result, people would have been like, up in arms. Oh, we gotta get ready for the future. Why didn't Kennedy start? Like, you can't have it both ways. And again, we can all admit, yeah, Kennedy had a bad game and he didn't play well and he got exposed a bit. But okay, great. Why didn't anyone score a goal? Why didn't we shoot? Why didn't we do anything? Like, yeah, great. You're right. Kennedy played badly. Vittoria probably should have started, but as you point out, he may not have been ready to start. Like, it's I'm slowly disliking our own fan base every other match. I feel like we still have a lot of positivity, and there's a lot of good fans out there who don't even have to be the ones who've been around for 30 or 40 years to be like, no, who've had to suffer. But there's been a weird change, and I'll maybe we'll spend some time calling them out by name as we go throughout this hour show. But there's some people who really, really have been grinding my gears, and I don't know what it is. I couldn't tell you.
yeah, I think I usually like KJ on One Soccer. Like he does good interviews, analysis is good. Um, I felt like his rant after the game was just him saying in like 15 minutes like this is bad and I don't feel good about it. Um,
Yeah, I saw that.
it
I saw KJ's rant, and he wasn't wrong. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you're not wrong in saying that, but also you're being a little dramatic. But I like KJ, so I'm not gonna. I would love to see KJ be more than just an analyst. I would like him to replace Gareth Wheeler in some capacity. Uh, it's a little ridiculous that we still gotta rely on that guy, but then that's a whole other thing we can complain about. But yeah, what's the
like
yeah.
sorry I liked a lot of this lineup in theory. So with the U.S., I guess we all sort of forgot this now, but they did not have McKennie in this match. They did not have Tyler Adams in this match. They did not have Serginho Dest in this match. The midfield specifically, that left them quite thin. I was pretty excited going into this game, knowing they're either it. I thought it was going to be like a Yunus Musa and De La Torre pivot, which like those guys both play in top in like the Spanish top in the Liga, but I think Eustachio is like ideally better than those guys. They're kind of like fringe starters, and um, seeing that Aronson was going to be beside Musa, which I thought was a weird move, and seeing that they're going to kind of trying to shift Rain into the middle in like a 4-3-3. I thought like this is like we have two really good CMs with Eustachio and Kone. We arguably have a better attack. We arguably have the best midfielder, and like let's just try to run them over in the middle with Eustachio, Kone, and Osorio. Um, in theory, I think this like going with the mid three, which Herbert usually has not gone with in bigger games. I thought that was really cool, and it showed growth on his part. Um, and that there's just so there's there's a lot that made sense about this plan is what I'm saying. I I'm sorry if I'm going on, but
No, I know. Keep going.
a lot of this game felt like Hamilton in a weird sort of way. Um, the only difference was the U.S. gave us a lot more respect on the outside. They recognized something that they didn't really do to the same extent in the Hamilton game, which was that like you guys are actually pretty quick up front. You might actually be quicker than us on the outside, and we're gonna acknowledge that, and we're gonna make Scally stay back. We're not gonna push him forward like Berhalter's obsessed with doing.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna leave our Premier League fullback in Robinson. We're gonna keep him back, and you guys are just gonna have to break us down. Um, and like basically the crux of what happened was we couldn't do that. We've never really dealt with a team that's just like outright respected us like that before.
Well, and that and
And
that in itself, I mean, like no one's gonna look at it as tactically as you are. Right? I mean, I'm saying no one. A lot of people aren't gonna look at it as tactically as you are right now. But when you think about it, then that's I would say it's mostly true, and that's a sign of a better. We are growing as a team. Again, we're still not as good as the U.S. So I'm going to just put it out there. Unfortunately, we are not. We are not as good as them. Even though we finished top in qualifying, it's they got a knockout game out of their World Cup. We didn't. So we're not as good as the USA, and that's fine because we're not there yet. And yeah, as a point of growth, they're taking us seriously now, where they probably came to Hamilton not taking us seriously. I don't think they took us seriously in Nashville either. Yes, that was just I shouldn't say just, but it was a draw. But I don't think they took us seriously then because I think they scored first and they thought they're going to walk all over us.
Yeah. Like there's this thing that we want to fixate on everything that we did, but it's almost like this ignorance of there's another team on the field and they're going to be doing stuff too. That's not to say if you're, I'm not going to pretend like the U.S. is a whole other league above us. I'm not going to give their fans that satisfaction. I'm not going to pretend like we just have to roll over and die every time we play them from now on. But it should be acknowledged what you said. That these games are not going to be easy in the future.
No, and what's wrong with Mexico's on a down spiral right now. I don't see a lot coming in their future. I could be wrong, of course, but what's wrong with USA? USA was in that second hole. It was always like Mexico's first, second, and USA's right at their heels. The last 10 years we've seen USA sort of overtake Mexico. It's always still good games between them, but you know what I mean? They had to chase down Mexico for decades. We're just starting our journey these last 3 years of chasing down the USA and CONCACAF. We'll keep it just CONCACAF specific for now. They're chasing them down too. That's a good spot to be in, is we're still rising. We don't have to all of a sudden have one good World Cup campaign for the first time in decades. Again, we talked pre-show. It's another tangent. We talked pre-show, but remember when we were worried about Suriname and we were worried about Haiti? And then, you go back and watch those highlights to get those good memories, and you're like, oh yeah, they got through to the knockout, the final round of CONCACAF World Cup qualifying for the first time in 20-something years. These last 4 years have felt a lot longer, but in the relative history of Canadian men's soccer, we're okay. We're on an upswing. It sucks when we have setbacks, especially when we know we can do better, and the Belgium game's a prime example. Somebody else other than Davies should have taken a penalty kick, and we probably shouldn't have lost 1-0 because we were all over Belgium. Who knew that game was going to be our best game of the qualifying? No one expected that. We thought we were going to hammer that game. It's okay. We got another World Cup. We got the Copa in next year. We have another Nations League starting again in September. Hopefully Copa. Just assume we won't be there. Another Nations League starting again in September. We got the Gold Cup. We have so many opportunities to grow and to prove ourselves. And yes, get disappointed more. But am I saying the same thing over and over again?
We sort of are, but it's nothing compared to the tweets on the other side.
Yeah, Twitter's a garbage town. I can't believe we use Twitter.
Yeah, I just kind of don't. I think there are I don't want to come off as too. I say come off like there's people watching, but I don't want to make it sound like I'm I don't think there's any legitimate criticism, and I've made a little list of things I think were kind of dumb in general. Obviously that, I don't know if you read that Athletic article, but that Kamal Miller quote about coming unprepared and still but I don't remember the exact quote, but overperforming, that almost felt like satire. That's a pretty scary quote, and it's probably not good that we're ranked where we are in the world, and we're getting 4 days of time to prepare before our biggest game in a long time. There's definitely criticism there, but I'm not going to pretend clearly that what's going on at the CSA, it's complicated. It's complicated.
Yeah. Do we have time dedicated to talk about all the stupid shit the CSA's doing? It's one of those things where it needs to be acknowledged, needs to be talked about more. So I'm glad you've brought it up naturally. We didn't make a point of talking about the CSA, but they're a joke. Honestly, as an organization, they're a joke, and
Like it's not even that, they don't even necessarily have to be like it. If you have like you can be a joke like 3 years ago with, and then like the jokeness of the board carries over like years into the future. Um, so like, eh, people seem to like Jason DeVos now, who's there now, and I think it's silly to just scream at the organization like it hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, it just like we could probably do it in parallels with the team right now. Like, are there changes at CSA that, I mean, the changes that we're aware of? Yes, there are some changes, and some things are moving forward for the better, I guess. You know, but we're gonna scream and shout all we want, and they're not gonna change really, even though they say they're trying to change. It's such a complicated situation where you don't want to be pessimistic, but it's like at the same time their business, and most businesses are incompetent, and ours just happens to be to be reflected constantly in how our both national teams, women's and men's, are dealt with. Like, I'm glad both teams are fighting side by side, and I know it was a year ago almost to the day when they had a whole fiasco in Vancouver with first Iran and then Panama, and then all that discussion, all that media, all that negativity. Like, it's hard to believe that was just over a year ago. And Canada Soccer has tried to make some amends. They've appointed people, they've removed people, they've done a few things, but is anything really going to change? And at the end of the day, it's like probably not, and we kind of just have to deal with it until the players actually refuse to walk at some point. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Like I think like even if I think it's very hard for fans to know the full story. And even back that being the case, I think you can see like there was probably something shady about Nick Bontis.
Ugh.
I don't think you need like a magnifying glass to see that. There's a lot of shady shit that's gone on in the past. But the problem is there's probably like very few people in the country who could really like speak about this with expertise. And like people don't really want that. But I think right now we're in a position where it's like especially difficult, where we're moving on to better people, ideally,
Yeah.
and but like the criticism is still in the same, like the critiques are still in the same place. Moving on to the performance itself. So since you didn't watch the second half, I will say Alfonso Davies did like a lot of stupid shit, especially like in the
Oh,
last 15
Alfonso
minutes.
Davies' hero ball didn't work.
Yeah, I've been critical of that narrative in the past. That like I feel like people say that about every good player who's not doing well in like a stretch of time. Like like you'll notice him losing the ball a lot, so that means he's hero ball. No, I think he was like actually hero ball in the last 15 minutes. There was like 3 or 4 times where he just took like a shot from like 30 yards. Um, it was getting like you just need to get taken off at that. There's like a certain sense that Fonzie could just kind of do whatever he wants and no one's gonna stop him. And like I mean, the Belgium game definitely lent some credence to
Well,
that.
I definitely have said in this show before, and I'm sure I've said to other people, I made a point of not going out in public and watching any of the Canada games of the World Cup because I just wanted to stress and be alone. Um,
Yeah,
but I
me
did
too.
say like, I did say like, again, I'm sure I've said in the show, like, Davies unfortunately is good enough where he'll pull it off at some point. Like, I know when he screwed up, and he knows more than anyone in the world. He knows he made a mistake on that penalty kick against Belgium. I said immediately he was not scoring, and he did not, and just it was so obvious. Anyway, that could be a whole show itself. Um, but and then I was like, I said out loud, like, he'll make up for it. Like, I know he's gonna make up for it, and he did. And the lead didn't last long, but he did. He had an amazing run, a great pass from Buchanan. Obviously, don't undersell that, but he did. He got the first goal in World Cups, and so when he hero balls it, which is extremely frustrating, obviously as a fan, I'm sure as a player on the field, when like there's times where like there's guys, and I know it happens in every sport, but they're just like, I'm right here, I'm literally right beside you. All you have to do is just give it to me, and I could have scored. And that happens a lot with Davies. He tries to go through four guys, he shoots it, he tries to do everything himself. But how do you stop that when he pulls it off occasionally? And then you're just like, he does what he did against Panama in Toronto, right? Like you're just like, well, okay, well,
Yeah, like
that's
he probably should have passed that ball to Tejan Buchanan. To
yeah.
be honest,
Well, no,
like Buchanan would have scored.
there's so many times he probably should have, but then he pulls it off. You're like, okay, well, I can't be mad
Yeah,
because he pulled it off. So his hero ball is frustrating, but when you have, he's gonna only get better. as you get old. Like, remember, he's under 23. What is he? 21 now? 22? I can always seem to be like a year off.
I think he's 22 now. Yeah.
He's 22 now. If he's gonna have a career, he's got 10 years plus left in him. Like, he has got so much left in him that it's like whatever. Like, we'll just have to get past it. And that's just what it is.
Yeah. I think he was like better at breaking to the final third than people gave him credit for. His touch was just god awful in that game. His passing was just god awful in that game. Like, it looked like we were in Central America, to be honest.
Well, that's what happens when you're getting beat by a better team. You start making stupid plays, start trying to do things.
The U.S. were just really sharp. Yeah.
We're getting it's,
like that was peak U.S.
It happens a lot. There's we have these discussions, and like when you're playing recreational sports or like beer league sports, you're talking about your guys in the beers afterwards in the parking lot. You're having beers in the change room afterwards. Like, oh man, like we should have done this, should have done that. Like, sometimes you just get like, you know what, we just got beat. And I think when you really want to dumb down the situation against the U.S. For the final, we played into the better team's plan and we lost. And we showed why we aren't as good as them, because as soon as we got our heads down, the game was over. Like, you can just feel the energy being gone. Tactics, skill aren't going to pull you out of it. We've done it before, and it's great we have, but we can count how many times we've done that in the last 4 or 5 years. We are up 2-0 against Haiti. I mean, the team has changed so much since then for the better, and yes, a lot of the key players are still the same for that 2019 game against Haiti, but we collapsed then, and we just got outclassed.
Just among other things that were bad before we get to the Gold Cup, I think subs should have been made after 45 minutes. Like,
Yes.
Buchanan probably should have gone on when we weren't really getting by anybody. I don't know why we waited.
Well,
so long.
this we can absolutely
that's a legitimate criticism of Herdman.
I agree with you. I was just about to say that is something we can agree and can rightly criticize Herdman. And again, there's other examples, but you think back to the Croatia match when it was only 2-1 at half, and Hutchinson was clearly being outclassed in the middle, and he was the direct result for at least, I know throughout the game, I would say at least 2 of those goals were on Atiba. Sorry, I know he's retired. R.I.P.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned him once. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, I love Atiba. He was a hero more often than not during qualifying, and he fucking played his heart out when he had to during the World Cup. He had the tampon on his nose. It was great. He absolutely tried so hard, and I will never ever speak.
He was really good against Belgium.
Yeah, he's great, but he was being killed in the middle against Croatia.
Yeah.
And at half, it was like, Herdman, you gotta get him off and get someone else, like anyone else on there. Get Piet out there for all I care. He just didn't do it, and I think
I got into a big argument about that. So I said like Samuel Piet would have been nice against Croatia. And
he would have been, because he at least he had the legs to keep up with those guys. He may not have the skill, but he would at least try and keep up with the pace. Anyway, Herdman deserves all the criticism. I just tweeted out saying, don't worry, we still love you. But he still deserves criticism. And a lot of managers of this bad, they're like, no, let's wait till the hour mark. No, make those changes at half. It's only 1-0. Like, before it gets worse, change something.
Just last week, we already kind of mentioned Kyle Larin, but he was like back in Club Brugge mode. He's had like a weird improvement in Spain where he's doing things I've never really seen him do. Like his hold-up play has got, at least from my impression, has gone so much better. Like he looked like a completely different player. In this game, he just kind of went back to like Besiktas mode.
It's the duality of...
He looked like that very pure poacher who didn't do much else.
Yeah, we talked briefly before we went on air, the duality of Larin, right? Like, just like with Alphonso Davies and Hero Ball, Larin he does play really poorly sometimes. We talked about there's that great chance. We talked about build up Buchanan up to Larin. Oh, great, and he just puts it right to the breadbasket in Turner, and you're just sort of like, oh, okay. But then he did set a Canadian record for the amount of goals he scored in the CONCACAF qualifying. So I guess he's a pretty good player. But yeah, I think that's the trade-off you get.
He scores in basically every big game. It's kind of crazy.
It's the duality of strikers. It's the duality of like great athletes, and like it's the moments they deliver is why you put up with the mediocrity. Like would I have loved to walk away with like people outside of CONCACAF would have scoffed at Canada having a Nations League trophy. I know Europeans hate the UEFA Nations League for whatever reason. I think it's a joke competition, but I would have loved to have the trophy. But like Laren just wasn't up to it, and he might not be up to it. It might be somebody else's turn next time, but he has delivered before, so we got to deal with it for now.
The last thing I wanted to complain about was my Stefan Eustáquio, who
Your boy.
yeah, my boy. There's like he was not great in the second half of the season since coming back from the World Cup. And I don't really know what he was doing for a lot of this window. There were times when like Carrasquilla and Panama just kind of burned him, which was weird to see. He just kind of got bodied in this game.
I'm a little surprised. I'm happy he's at the Gold Cup and he's on the roster. I'm happy to see him like really sort of committing to, like, obviously he's committed to Canada, but you know what I mean? Like, it's nice to see that he's not playing at our field and being like, no, these games I don't care about. I don't want to play these small minnows and stuff like that. I appreciate that, but I feel like, you wouldn't have held it against him for the Gold Cup if after he played those Nations League games, like, okay, well, now I have time to recover because clearly I'm injured or I'm just out of gas or whatever. Yeah, he has seemed uncharacteristically quiet, and not even the sense of just like that he's just
not like steady quiet.
Yeah, he's not like present. It seems like he's being outshined by Kone, and now that Kone's doing anything amazing, you're just like you don't really notice Eustáquio, and so yeah, I agree.
Kone was quite good I'd say Kone was like the brightest spot in the U.S. game. Later on, he was doing things no one else was.
How how many years ago we would have killed to have someone like Kone, and now that we have him and we still are finding things to be upset about, like, yeah, we lost the final and it sucks, but we do not, again, I'll reference the 2019 Haiti game. I think in the last, other than the Honduras fiasco, in the last like 5 to 10 years, that Haiti game may have been the lowest point for Canada soccer. And the fact that we were in a final, yes, it's, we only had to play 5 games. What was it? No, we had to play 5 games to get to the final. So sure, whatever. It's a bit of a joke, but we're playing in a final. We're playing for a game. We had 2 games that mattered, and we won one of them to play in a bigger game. So we deserve to be upset. But God, my goodness, like, better days ahead.
I want to start off the Gold Cup by making fun of it a bit, and asking like, if like we're sending if everyone's, or at least if the top 4 countries are sending their A teams to Nations League, and Gold Cup is now like this place to send your prospects and your David Wotherspoons, like, is there like any world where it's still like the A tournament of CONCACAF?
Well, I think CONCACAF wants it to be the A tournament of CONCACAF because, you get teams in this tournament that aren't even like ranked in FIFA. Like they're not. You get a bunch of teams that you'd never seen before. Many teams, yes. You get a number of teams you wouldn't even see in a FIFA ranking. Which, you know what? For the third time, who's got it in the bingo card? I'll reference the Haiti game. As a sports fan, those moments are why you like a tournament like this, is because you get a smaller country. One you wouldn't normally see. One day maybe St. Lucia might win a game, and they'll go. They might finish second in a group in 10 years and play a game and do the exact same to somebody. Like, that's why you want these tournaments. So, as a sports fan, as someone who works in sports broadcasting, the storylines are why you want this tournament. But yeah, sure. It's definitely now that the bigger teams are outright just being like, nah. Well, I mean, yeah, we'll still send a few guys, but like. We need our good players to rest. But yeah, sure, we'll send our... Yeah, CONCACAF wants this tournament to be bigger than it is. Stop banking on just having the Mexican fans make sure you make money at the gate, because you're playing in stadiums where you're not... Canada's playing Cuba in Houston or something like that, right? Like who's going to go watch that game? I would love to go watch that game, but you know what I mean? Like, they're not drawing people on TV. They're not drawing people in the stands unless it's USA or Mexico. You might get the occasional good draw for another country. Jamaican fans travel well. A lot of those Caribbean teams travel well, but you know what I mean? Like, you're better off just having, like, 3 stadiums and then just actually making something out of it. Make a tournament out of it. But yeah, this is the secondary tournament now in Concacaf. It's blatant. They don't want to admit it, but the only reason they do that is because you got to give, and which is why I agreed with Victor Montagliani or whatever his name is, who they reformed their World Cup qualifying. They reformed all this stuff because you'd get these smaller teams, even like Bermuda and stuff like that, who might be considered a little higher than some, who would go 2 years without a match that means anything. They'd go 3 years without a match that means anything. So that to have Nations League, Gold Cup, and World Cup qualifying now, they are more important varying degrees, and it sucks. But CONCACAF Gold Cup, as much as I love the tournament, it's not the number one anymore, baby. And it never will be again.
I guess on one hand, it's like a privileged position for like the top 3 teams because it's like I guess it's only for you. Like Nations League gets to be your A tournament.
Well, and this as a Canadian fan, we want to circle back to Canada. This now we've had fans screaming. I'm sure on Discord. I'm sure on Twitter. Like, oh, we got to cap more dual nationals. We got to give more chance to young players. Like, well, now
there's no one.
Well, yeah, there's no one. People love Jebison. I don't understand why they love him so much, but God, they love Jebison.
Can't wait for 2025 when he still hasn't committed to us.
Oh, yeah, and you'd rather play for U21 or whoever England and not get any field time. Great, congratulations, Daniel. Way to go.
Yeah.
But you know what? Now we're getting a chance to actually play some players who wouldn't normally get a call up. We're going to cap them, and they're going to be cap tied, and they're in our system. There you go. Like, this is what this tournament is now for. I guarantee you Canada will get a knockout game. So if we get a knockout game and we win that in itself should be a win for the tournament. Like, get guys caps, get them playing, get them experience, and then so when you bring your big players back, you now have trained the supporting cast that we need. Canada desperately needs a better supporting cast. We still have a good one, but we need a bigger pipeline of B players and C players to come up and support the A players. And this tournament now is that for Canada, USA, and Mexico, and it provides storylines for the smaller countries. You're going to get an upset somewhere. Someone's going to beat someone somewhere. And it's going to be great. I mean, Jamaica's bringing their A team, apparently. But if you want to talk about questionable federations, though, nothing touches the Jamaican national team. Nothing. So, like,
I think they have their shit like a bit more together.
A bit more together, but even like 4 years ago, they were like absolutely a joke. And I think they're making up for missing the World Cup because when we saw the path to the World Cup, everyone was just like, well, the top 3 are obviously going to be USA, Mexico, and Jamaica. And so hopefully Canada finishes 4th for that playoff game. I remember that. And then Jamaica, like 2 windows in, everyone's just like, wow, Jamaica just like, they're not going to make it. They're not even going to make a playoff spot. They went forever without a win.
Yeah. No, their coach was terrible. But side note, I really love this weird, because they hired like this the old Iceland coach, I think. They have like this weird pipeline from like the Jamaican league to Iceland. I just thought that's kind of bizarre.
I mean, how far of a flight is that from Jamaica to Iceland? Maybe it's just a direct island to island.
I guess that's possible. Yeah, I guess just to get into some players I'm excited to see. Yeah. And I'm sure someone you've gotten to watch a little bit now is Ali Ahmed, who made this this roster.
Really happy. I mean, I was scared when he had that injury at Pacific in the Canadian Championship, but he seems back and he's ready to go. So, yeah, honestly, I have the roster up just down here. Yeah, I mean, I'm really actually who I'm looking forward to most seeing playing is Zach McGraw. I will say.
Yeah, I'll admit that's someone I've literally never watched him.
No, I watched him a bit just being on the West Coast. I've seen him a bit. Kind of like I saw his name on the roster and I was like, oh, that's, and I sort of looked into it more. I'm like, oh, right, yeah, okay. But like, again, people are screaming for more defensive depth and more defensemen, and he might be able to fill a hole. Like, and then, everyone's most hated player right now, Scott Kennedy, is also on the roster, and I'm sure he'll shine at some point. So is it Moise Bombito? Did I say it right?
I don't know if it's Moise or Moisey, but yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know what the little dots above the I mean.
Yeah, one of our 2 fans will watch this a week from now. Hit us in the comments afterwards and correct us.
Yeah, please.
But yeah, I'm looking. There's those guys for sure. I'm looking forward to seeing play.
I love like the USMNT fans and like in Twitter mentions going like immediately finding out that Zach McGraw went to West Point, which means he can't have dual nationality, which means Canada's pulling something shady here. There's like
it's just like all those African
CONCACAF
fans.
just breeds this weird obsession you don't see in any federation. It's amazing.
No, those crazy African fans. I remember when I think a couple years ago during qualifying, like all the highlights of Alfonso Davies was getting everywhere, and all these fans on Twitter from Africa were just like
Ghana
"Oh no,
fans.
he should be playing for Ghana or like Liberia. He shouldn't be playing for Canada. He's not even Canadian." Just like, okay, guys, like let's relax here. Like it gets really, or even with Jonathan David, well, we know he was born in Brooklyn. Great, like. Show me a list. Like, you want to start pulling that card? Like, every European team would not have anybody on their roster. Like, are you absolutely kidding me? Anyway, go on.
Yeah. Or like I remember like that I love you, Suriname. I love you so much. That one Suriname guy on Twitter who's saying like we're a team of Africans and Caribbeans and we stole them, and it's like, what? Look at you. Are any of your players like literally from? Okay, I don't know if that's like if I just made like a bad colonialism blind.
Well,
I don't know, but
we were thinking about doing an episode dedicated to just colonialism after this, but we can get to it right now if you want. I mean, we were going to really hit on every point of colonialism. My grandparents didn't come here till after World War II, so I have no part in the colonialism. No, I know, but that's every federation.
It's bad discourse.
Every fan base. You know, those are the real like. Trying to think of an example, like, but you know, like it happens every time. Like, well, actually, they should be playing for France, or like, oh, like yeah, or people were saying that about France team that won in 2018. They're like, well, you know, really, most of those players are from North Africa, so they really shouldn't be playing for France. You're like, great, and like their family immigrated there, or they have French like. Blame if you want to get really like black and white about it. Blame FIFA for allowing it. If they had a rule where it's like no, you can only play where you were actually born, and like no, we will trace it back. If I know you have a birth certificate saying something else, but we're gonna make sure and find out you were like Alfonso Davies. I know you were born. Yeah, you say you're Canadian, but you were actually born in Liberia. So if you try and play your national football, that's who you're playing for.
Speaking of which, okay, before we get into like. The Montreal emissions.
Yes.
Sounds like a movie. I realize there's like 6 players we've had like raised in Canada over the last few years who are now playing for other countries, and that's if I can remember them off the top of my head, this is how I spend my days, folks. There's Stefan Mitrovic, that was that fiasco. Dominic Yankov. And then there's Enes Sally with Romania. And recently, were you following like the Farsi Abzi?
A little bit. I just know he's not playing for us.
Okay. I really would have liked to see Mo Farsi at this tournament, and you can tell me if this is justified or not. Like, this is a guy who's born and raised in Montreal, and he has like the unique experience of having actually lived in the country of his heritage. He played in the Algerian league for a year, and by played I mean he didn't play. He didn't make a single appearance. They booed him back over the ocean. They never gave him a chance.
Yeah.
Then he gets to the CPL, which gives him a career and which gives him this pathway to MLS and like a full-time job. And like the moment he's doing well with Columbus, he makes one of those big like, you know, my soul is not Canadian sort of speeches. And like, I just feel like that kind of shit is so sad.
Well, I don't know, but you know, you hang around those guys and like trying to think of a you know, you hang around those guys in Hamilton who are like, well, you know, I'm Italian, so I always got like, even though their parents and grandparents came here 150 years ago, like, oh, you know, I'm Italian, man, so I make things around here. It's like, no, you're not. I mean, yeah, great, you have Italian heritage, and I am happy for you. You know, but and I guarantee you, those guys would also, if they were like, "Hey, we're gonna pick you to play for the Italian pickleball team. Do you want to do it?" And they would be like, "Okay, yeah, sure," because I truly believe that's where my heart belongs. And to be honest, if they're like, "Hey, like, you know, my grandparents are from the UK," and then, you know, they're like, "Hey, like, we want you to play for the UK national team," I love and respect my grandparents. I would be like, "This is a tough call because that's where my family's from, and I want to give it." So there's the like the family aspect. There's the, actually, and some people just choose the path they want to go, and I'm upset he didn't choose Canada because you're right. His career was built here.
It's not like 100% certain yet, to be fair, but
no, but
still.
but I see where you're coming from, and I understand. Like he all these things are true that you're saying on both sides, but ultimately that's what players choose to play, and again, blame FIFA for allowing that, or whoever signed off, be like, oh yeah, no, like if your grandfather was born here or your parents were born here, but you were born there, that's fine because you have heritage, a tie, close enough tie. Those are the rules, and people can complain. They can scream all they want about how Jonathan David should be playing for the USA. How Eustáquio probably shouldn't play for Canada and all this stuff. Scott Arfield, I think, never set foot in Canada either, and he still ended up playing for us. Like, people can bitch and moan all they want, and they're probably right to a certain degree, but that's the rules, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, to me, it's crazy that we're already losing like CPL products to like the likes of Algeria and maybe Morocco with Abzi.
Not to create speculation, but this happens at a college level, a junior level for sports. Are they not getting? Are they maybe receiving financial incentives to also play for that team? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't. That's again. I don't want to create speculation. I have nothing to base it on. But there's a more of a push, like, hey, you come play here. We'll give you this. We'll give you that. Like it's hard when a country comes calling. We don't know discussions between Canada and Farsi. But if someone comes calling, like a job, if someone calls, hey, we want to hire you, it's nice to be wanted from somebody. It's nice to have a team want you. And so if someone comes calling being like, yeah, we want you on our team and you're going to start, it's hard to, and whereas with Canada, it's like, well, I don't think I'm going to start. So yeah, I'm going to go.
Okay,
I'm going to go
the
team.
Farsi is just like uniquely indefensible because like he has played Olympic qualifiers.
Yeah.
Like, it just rubs you the wrong way.
As it should, and you're right to feel that way. Yeah.
All right, let's get into the emissions.
Yes.
So there are 3 Montreal players in particular. I think a lot of people were expecting to see at the Gold Cup, and those are Joel Waterman, Jonathan Sirois, and Matthew Choinière, who I actually expected to see at Nations League. And in their place, we only called 5 midfielders. I think very questionably we called David Wotherspoon, who does not currently have a team and who did not play for much of the year with St. Johnstone in Scotland, and Victor Laturi from Ross County, another CPL product. Yeah, so I guess if I'm going to fill the awkward space there, I think like I feel like this is like all speculation, but just based on what I've heard Herman talk about, like with impact players, I think sometimes he'll get these perceptions. My take is he'll get these perceptions out, like there's impact players and then there's like spectators, and I guess the idea is that like Montreal was kind of dog shit at the beginning of the year, and 2, like at least I can see this a year ago, Choinière kind of seemed like more like Russell Teibert than anyone else, like someone who maybe has a great engine, but someone whose impact on it, like someone who might get like shuffled into an 11, but someone whose impact on the game might be sort of questionable. The problem is I don't think that applies this year. Like I've watched Montreal a bit, and I think he's just objectively grown as a player. He reminds me of like sort of like a mini Jonathan Osorio more than anything else. Like he is committed to getting forward now. And as someone said, like on the CSA forum, I'm just going to steal, someone with like the engine of Russell Teibert who uses that to get forward, that's actually a really valuable player. And I don't think there's any good argument, unless Montreal like fought tooth and nail. I don't think there's any good argument to keep Matthew Choinière off the squad.
I think it's recently come out that the manager of Montreal was also like surprised and upset that they weren't called up, and I wish I could find justification. I don't think there's much of a justification why they shouldn't come. There's a bit of a growing trend right now with people, especially people who criticize Herdman, and they could be right on this one, that he wants his guys. He talks about. But
is Victor? Am I supposed to really buy that? Like Victor Laturi is like one of his guys after like 2. Like Matthew Chenier has also been to the Brain camp and he didn't play.
Mhm.
Victor Loturi's now been to 2 camps and he didn't. Like, I don't really buy that. Like, Victor Loturi is like his guy now. It's hard for me to buy.
It creates lots of discussion and good discussion between Canadian fans when these decisions happen. Like it's I'm happy we're at a point now where we're talking about people like the who should be on the roster and who shouldn't be. I mean, I'm sure there's discussion like that 20 years ago, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm glad we're at a point now where we can nitpick rosters or who should be in there, who should not be. Ultimately, we're sort of just stuck at the boss's decision, and he's decided who's going. And I think if they do well, again, I think the best they can do is just win a knockout game. That'll be a good tournament for this team. If
It's going to be tough with Jamaica or the
yes,
US.
exactly. No, I saw the path a couple days ago to confirm who we'd be against. Oh yeah, like either way, it's a tough matchup and a good one, but it's tough. I don't see us getting out of it. But if we win, consider that like a successful tournament. But you just got at this point before we get into the games, we have to trust that he knows what he's doing, and then once it's proven he doesn't know what he's doing, or vice versa, then we can say, yeah, what the hell? Like, why didn't you? What was your inkling that to pick these guys? Why is Cavallini there? Like,
I mean, I get that our forward depth out when you get past Laird and David is just dog shit right now. I've been saying that a lot. This episode, but it's just bad.
I understand, and I actually am a defender of Cavallini. But if we're going in a let's get cusp players,
who else would you take? Is all like who else would you bring?
I don't know, but I feel like I wouldn't have been upset if he was not there and someone who's on the cusp of a CPL team striker, like, or if there's some, I don't know. Maybe I'm pulling dogs
on the back of this shirt. I don't know. I don't think Cavallini is like much of a soccer player these days either.
No.
With Tijuana, he's really lost his legs. And he just seems so. I don't know if he's like a center back said something about his parents. I don't know, but he's just vicious against center backs. He's bashing into him every chance he gets. I think he scored 2 goals in 11 games or something. But the truth is he has a scoring record at the very least.
Yeah.
And
yep.
If you look at there's just really no one else on the radar. That's why Jason Russell Rowe is getting called into this tournament. I get Cavallini.
If Cavallini's used as a 75th minute sub every time, I will take back what I said.
I get Cavallini as a starter.
Oh.
I don't do you want Liam Miller at the 9? Do you want Charles Andres Brim? I don't know.
I do.
Okay.
I think it's unfortunate. I'm just looking at the schedule right now to confirm. So June 27th, Guadeloupe. July 1st, Guatemala. July 4th, Cuba. Those games will be closer than we want them to be, but those are 3 wins. I'll say right now, those are 3 wins. I could see us scraping by one of these games. One of these games is going to be a lot closer than we want it to be. You were mentioning...
It's going to be one of the first 2, yeah.
Yeah, you were mentioning...
Guadeloupe has some weirdly good players.
Something's gonna catch us off guard somewhere. Hopefully the fact that we're playing in Toronto gives those players an extra little push, because we are playing a Gold Cup game in Canada. So hopefully that's something that they don't even make a game out of it. They're just no, we're gonna set our foot down. Guatemala, I could see being a lot tougher than Guadeloupe, and especially we're playing in Houston in July, so I imagine that the heat will play a factor. Cuba, I could see us going to that game and being oh no, we have to win this to at least finish second. I could see that scenario playing out, and that's fine. We're gonna win that game, but I think we're gonna get through, and then hope at the very least, do we want USA? Do we want Jamaica out of that? I guess in this tournament we want USA. If Jamaica is truly bringing a number 1, their A+ team,
I feel on paper Jamaica must be better. I'm sure by transfer market values they're better. But the US seems to have I don't know, those MLS teams, they did win tournaments consistently for a long time when there was no one else to compete with them. So it's hard to say. I think I'd still go with the US because it would be nice to beat them after Nations League.
Yeah.
But I go either way.
Well, and I feel like a fool because I paid for Fubo TV for the first time to watch the Panama match and to watch the USA match. I didn't even watch the USA.
You're not a One Soccer subscriber?
No, I try not to. Even though they've given me some money the last Media Pro's given me some money the last little while. I haven't really subscribed to One Soccer for quite some time. Let me see. Okay, I mean, I think we've talked a lot about. We're gonna wrap up here in a bit because I just loathe our
Women's World Cup at the last 5 minutes.
Let's touch it up because I do want to dedicate an episode. We'll at least half our next episode. We'll try and do one at the end of the Gold Cup and beginning of the Women's World Cup because I do want to dedicate more than just a few minutes at the end of a show. We seem to sort of push them off to the last little bit. I do want to next time we go dedicate some time to the women's team because unfortunately, like, and maybe not so much in recent years, although hey, we won the Olympics, so we are champions of the world for a short period of time at least. The problem is that I found with the women's ice hockey team for Canada and the women's soccer team for Canada is that they are actually a team that's used to winning. And yes, for the women's soccer team, it may not always be trophies and medals, but they're the kind of team, much like the women's ice hockey team, where we're like, okay, the group stage is whatever because we know we're getting out of the group stage. Let's call me when they start playing games that matter. And you and I, again, talked before we got going, and we talked a bit more about the women's, like, looking at their group, it's kind of the same situation as the men's team in the Gold Cup. It's like, okay, well, talk to me when we get to the knockout round, because there should be no competition. Although we talked, again, before we went on there, the one game I do want to watch is the worst time for anyone in North America, because it's 6 a.m. on the East Coast, I guess 7 o'clock on the Atlantic, so not too bad, but 3 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. They're playing the host Australia, and that's a game I do want to watch. So we'll see. Am I going to stay up all night and watch it, or am I going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and watch that one? That's really they should. I don't get ahead of myself here. I know we've regressed a bit as a team for the women's team in the last little while, but we should steamroll Nigeria and Republic of Ireland. I'm sorry to say, like, those are 2 easy wins. Australia, I'm a little more concerned about because not only are they playing at home, but they are a better team than people expect them to be every World Cup and every international competition. I don't know. What do you think?
I think the problem is sort of, I think I've said it before, but like during the Olympics, while we were squeezing out wins all the way to the gold medal, it was always kind of clear like this team couldn't really score. And it worked somehow. It worked in the Olympics because I think Bev Priestman's a better coach than people are giving credit for these days.
Mm-hmm.
But like, just we don't really have. I don't believe we have anyone scoring consistently at club level. And like, well, while it's fun to like throw like Jordan Huitema up to the front to sort of just, in theory, stand above everyone in knock goals. And like she's only scored, I'm checking right now, I think she scored like 5 goals this season. Like, it's
the offense for the Canadian women's team is definitely stifled, and like we played into that at the Olympics where we're like, we're gonna win 1-0, we're gonna win after penalties, we're gonna win off set pieces, kind of like how England at the 2018 World Cup were playing, like, okay, we're gonna play to score at our best opportunities, and then that's it. We know we're not gonna score off breakouts a lot. And I think even watching the She Believes Cup and a few other of their matches since the Olympics, that's been very evident that the Canadian women's team is missing some offense. But I would say that they're probably one of the strongest teams across the board. Like, all their players can play, everyone plays at a high level, but we are missing a killer instinct, or just someone who can, like Christine Sinclair was that, and she still is that, but not really anymore. Can't rely on it. But looking ahead, because they're in Group B with Australia, Ireland, Nigeria. When they get out of that group, because there's no way they're not getting out of the group, they're gonna play either. I assume who they're gonna play in Group D, because Group D is England, Denmark, China, and Haiti. I'm sorry, Haiti, you're not winning a game in that group. I'm sorry, China, you might get a draw in that group. So Canada's either got England or Denmark. Hopefully Denmark, still a strong team in the women's game, but England would be a tough matchup out the box. I don't know if Canada can do the same thing they did at the Olympics and just play for 1-0 games 2-0 just at the death, like happened to score that that insurance goal at the end. I don't know if Canada can, and hopefully they can figure it out in the group stage. That's if I have a concern for the women's team is that they can, as you've mentioned, they can score some goals. I don't know who's going to come from anymore. Like, by committee is great, but they're not really even doing that.
Yeah, like I've liked Chloe Lacasse in the past, and she is scoring like a ridiculous amount, but it's in Portugal, and yeah, like as of right now, she has not been like the same person in a national team shirt. So yeah, like I'm my expectations are like about as middling as it is with the men in the Gold Cup. Like, maybe they have a better chance of winning a knockout game. But
I think so. I think they definitely have if you compare to the men's team in the Gold Cup, I think the women's team have a significantly better chance of winning a knockout game. I just hope they do it. I hope they don't stumble and finish second in their group because England's a tough matchup. I think if they finish top in B and play what we assume is probably Denmark in second, because the England's team is always pretty well. They perform pretty well. I think they can win that game a lot easier than Canada men's team can.
And I guess I want to close this off with one of my trademark rambling speeches.
Yes.
So like, maybe I've come off as like a little negative about like both the men's and women's team. I realize that now. But I think like as sports fans, it's a problem. Like happiness always seems relative. Like if you do too well, like a new tier of expectations pop up so that like you're always disappointed no matter what. Like I think there's still a lot of reasons to like where both programs are at. Like you can still enjoy what they do well, and they both do a lot of things well. Like I don't think anyone has an excuse to just be like totally furious right now.
No, absolutely. No, you're 100% correct.
Yeah, so I just say like, let's enjoy what we have here.
Well, I think yes, let's enjoy what we have and know that we can expect more. But like we're not there yet. It's a couple of things there. It's like happy with what we have, how far we've come, know to expect more, but it's not going to happen in one competition. Even if we had won that game against the US, we're not all of us. Yes, bragging rights. I would have been like, we are officially the kings of CONCACAF because we won that tournament. That title can stick all those assholes who were saying we're kings of CONCACAF because we finished first in qualifying. Technically, they were correct, but not really. But it's what we're not. Our success isn't going to happen overnight. And I think it'll take until a decent performance at Copa or whatever, if that's happening, if we make it in 2024. I think it's not going to happen yet. We've come a long way, but remember that long way. Our qualifying campaign for the World Cup started March 2021. Correct me if I'm wrong. Against Bermuda.
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah, March 2021. That's over 2 years ago, but think how far we've come in that time. Like, remember, beginning of that qualifying, we've mentioned it on the show today, beginning of that qualifying campaign for the men's, we were like, oh, well, if we get into the final round, that's a win. And then when we got through, it's like, okay, well, if we get to the Intercontinental playoff spot, that's huge. And then it also became more reality. Think about how far we've come from expectations and performance since then. And you can even think about the women's too. We disappointed a few times, a few tournaments, we fell flat. We're Olympic champions. We're gold medal champions in the women's game. Like, we have a right to brag for that team too. Yes, we haven't performed great since then, and it's not looking great, but we came from somewhere.
We really won a gold medal.
We literally won what we had to win. And we beat the U.S. in the process of doing that. One of my most hated sports teams is the women's national team for the U.S. I absolutely hate that team. And we beat them. So let's enjoy, as you say, enjoy what we have. Know we can do better, but it's not happening overnight.
Nods.
Yes, go on.
You have to say the thing.
Oh, thanks for inviting me on my own show and do the final line.
Yeah.
You know what?
I forgot how to set it up.
Yeah, it took us a while to get here. I promise we'll be back for our 2 viewers. One of them's probably just me having the stream on in the background, but that's okay. I'm a loyal viewer of our own show. We'll be back before the Women's World Cup to set that up. I wanted to really dedicate some time to that tournament because I think we could walk away with something from that tournament, and I think it deserves time to talk about. So we'll be back in about a month. Until then, thanks for having me on the show. There you go.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.